Hello and welcome to the channel, or welcome back to the channel, whichever one applies to you. My name is Kai, and today I don't think this video is going to be very long, especially compared to the rest of my videos. Because this video is about nuance and the fact that for whatever reason, and I don't know what this reason is, I've not been able to figure it out just yet. Maybe it's conditioning. Maybe it's willful ignorance in some form. But nuance I've been noticing over the last few years. Well, I should say I started to notice over the last few years, but when I went back and looked at how conversations, especially online, have been going even like years before I started to notice this, that nuance has been becoming less and less present in our conversations, at least in the vast majority of the online spaces and in America specifically. As with some of the other topics that I have talked about, I'm not going to really talk about in-person stuff in other countries, since I haven't really been present in those countries and in those cultures to know whether or not this is happening there. But in America, I have noticed it. And if you're watching this video, there's a good chance that a part of you, at the very least, has noticed this as well. And as far as I can tell, this really started with the bigger topics and subjects that our societies talk about. In terms of political motivations, like the global climate, animal conservation, stuff like this, like big like criminal offenses, so like murder and SA and stuff like this. The conversations around these specific things were the first, as far as I have been able to see and am aware of, these topics were the first that nuance either stopped being present in the conversations of, or just was never there. And then from there, it started trickling down into lesser and lesser issues and conversations, to the point where nowadays, especially online, it is very rare that you are able to say an opinion about one thing and it not be completely polarized. So, let's take So I'm a big anime fan. Um, I'm a big advocate for enjoying media for what it is and not comparing it as much to other forms of media or other um, manifestations in that realm of media. So, like in anime, especially in America, online and in person, conversations about anime get polarized almost immediately. Um, and one of the big ones for me that I've noticed is solo leveling. If you don't know, solo leveling came out uh, a couple years ago now, I think. The second season came out last year, I believe, early last year. And we're maybe towards the end of 2024. I I think um, I think the first season of Solo Leveling, the anime, came out in sometime in 2023, maybe early 2024. And then the second season came out, I'm pretty sure, yeah, end of 2024. And I thought it was an amazing anime. Like, it quickly made it to, like, up there into, like, my top 10 anime list. Uh, pretty easily, honestly. The quality of the animation, not just in the fights, but in general, was exceptional. The the world building was really cool. I really like to see thoughtful world building. Even if there is a couple plot holes, which um, almost every form of storytelling media is going to have plot holes at some point. No human, no creative is perfect. And part of the reason that uh, storytelling media is so impactful is the fact that the creatives behind it are imperfect and sometimes to a fault. Because when a creative channels that imperfection and their faults into their work, it gives it a depth that you like. It gives it a depth that really resonates with people, you know. Um, and this is a fact that I think most people who consume and like really enjoy consuming different forms of media, movies, TV shows, anime, cartoons, even, and storytelling media specifically, music. These people, I think, understand this, but do not consciously really think about it. That when a movie bombs in like theaters and stuff, like there's a lot of hype around it. Everyone's super excited, and then the movie comes out, and everyone goes and sees it, and they're like, "Oh my god, this was just a fucking awful movie!" Like, what were they thinking? It is usually because there's no emotional depth imparted by the creative who made it. This is why, like, AI generated media doesn't hit as hard as like human created media. It's just that imperfection being channeled into the medium is what makes it impactful. And so after I watched the first season of Solo Leveling, I was super hyped. I was like, oh my god, this story was amazing. Like, I can see that they're setting up for so many things. Like, uh, the main character is clearly like he's gonna flip the whole thing on its head. Like, no one's gonna know what the hell to do once they realize what is happening with him. And sure, a lot of the side characters, and even really like maybe they're not as impactful as the side characters in a lot of other anime, and some of them are clearly there for an expositional reason. So like there's different grades or classes of hunters in Solo Leveling is what they're called. um and the highest grade ones, there's not very many of them. There's like a handful in the entire world. Like, it's like in the entire world, I think there's maybe 20 or 30 is how we are introduced to it. And we don't really get a whole lot of backstory on them. We don't really get to see a whole lot of them unless it pertains to the main character. Um, but I think that is quite, like, from my perspective, it's quite intentional because they're not there to have their own story, even though we've been getting pretty used to the side characters in a lot of media having their own story along with the main characters. They're they're there to show just how unprecedented and unbelievable what is happening with the main character is. Like, there is elements in the show that I see from someone who has pursued creative writing for quite a while that are clearly meant to either be foreshadowing something bigger in the future, or like it's meant to be like a character arc for the main character, potentially even for some of the side characters. But because there's not really any nuance involved in the conversations anymore, when I went online to go see what other people were saying about it and kind of, share my own excitement, all I saw for the most part were people either shitting on the anime because they didn't they couldn't see and understand, because it requires having the ability to recognize and use the concept of nuance. The things that I just said, like, they couldn't see and understand that the most of the first season was world building, that they were setting up for a larger overarching story um, within the realm of the show. Or the people who were combating these shit talkers also didn't see this and understand it, but they weren't like rebutting the shit talk about the story, really. Like, they were just trying to get people to stop shit talking the show because it was visually appealing. The musical scores were great. Um, like, it was all very shallow. And I don't think without nuance that you can go any deeper than the surface level of anything that you're talking about. Because without nuance, everything becomes polarized. And when everything is polarized, there's no room to go deeper because you're not even thinking about going deeper. All you're thinking about is, well, this is better than that, and this doesn't have any issues, but that has all these issues that this doesn't have, and da 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 da. It just, you're losing the depth that you could have in that conversation. And it's gotten to the point where even just going and saying that you enjoy this thing that everyone is shitting on for reasons that not a lot of people are really talking about, or you express that you see something in this thing that people are talking about that others for some reason are not seeing. The minute people see that, instead of taking a moment to really think about what you're saying and explore that and go deeper with it, they take it as a sign that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, clearly, because how can you like this show when it's so shitty? But then B, if you don't know what the fuck you're talking about with this show, nothing else that you say about any other media, it can be accurate or have any real value to it. Because if you can't see that this show is dog shit, you clearly can't understand how fucking amazing this movie was. I actually think that part of the issue with this nuance stuff is that what are the words? How do I say this? Sorry, give me a second. I have to rethink how I was gonna word this. Okay. So I think part of the problem that is leading to a lack of nuance in these conversations is I've noticed, especially online, it's the easiest to see online in comment sections and on social media and stuff. In America, specifically with Americans, our reading comprehension is so low, overall. Not everyone's, clearly, but overall, the American reading comprehension is insanely low. I've had people, I leave comments on YouTube all the time. Most people who are on YouTube do. And in the last couple of days, I have left some comments on some videos that either I was expanding upon something that they were talking about and agreeing with what they were saying, or I was disagreeing with something that was being said or done in a video. And someone would come in and reply to my comment or my reply, and they would, so let's say I was agreeing with statements being made in a YouTube video, right? And giving my reasons for why I agree with that. Someone would come in and reply, and essentially they would also be agreeing with what was going on in the video. But then they would be talking to me, like replying directly to me and to my comment, like I had been disagreeing with the same shit that we both were talking about, that I was agreeing with. They'd be acting like I was disagreeing with that stuff, and then would be very hostile to me about it. And I'd be like, why are you being so hostile about this? And did you even properly read my comment? Because I was agreeing with the same shit that you're agreeing with, that you're coming at me like I'm disagreeing with. I've also, like, unfortunately, allowed myself to get into arguments in the YouTube comments. Because sometimes when I see someone expressing, like, the dumbest fucking thoughts I've ever seen and just being blatantly wrong, just completely ignorant, and having no footing for it, sometimes I just can't help but to engage with it. And so, gotten in arguments with people in the YouTube comments about stuff, and I would, so when I'm in, like, when I'm in the mode of communicating through written language, I am like 5 times more articulate than I am in these videos. I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe it's because I have the chance to, like, look at everything I'm saying before I send it, which I also think a lot of people don't do anymore. And I wish they would, because it would solve so many of the issues happening online. But so, like, I'll make this really, really articulate, very direct, very clear rebuttal of whatever stupid bullshit this person is saying in the YouTube comments about a subject they clearly do not know anything about, besides the couple YouTube videos that they've watched where the person making the video briefly talks about it. And as soon as I do, they'll reply back, and not only have they somehow completely misinterpreted what I was saying, but it's clear that they didn't even read parts of what I said. And so then the argument devolves from the original topic that they were talking about, that I replied to, into, like, some stupid fucking argument because they didn't have the reading comprehension to understand what the fuck I was saying in the first place. And usually when I realize that their reading comprehension is at a lower level than what is required for the topic being discussed, I just leave it be. Sometimes I'll say that they need to grow their reading comprehension skill and that I'm disengaging from the conversation. Other times I'll just not reply anymore, because it's not worth it, and I don't really fucking care what anyone on the internet who sees this thread of arguing replies thinks about me, because I'll probably never fucking meet them anyway, so why should I care what they think about a 10-minute interaction with some idiot online, you know? But I don't know, I just, not having the proper reading comprehension, I think, translates into lacking proper critical thinking skills, because part of reading comprehension is being able to think critically about what you are reading and the ways that you're interpreting it, and how you think about it, so that you can decide whether or not you agree or disagree, whether or not whatever is being said is worth you even like replying to, and that's like a subjective value evaluation that is unique to every individual. Like, I may decide that someone who makes a comment disagreeing with or giving a take on an anime that I've watched uh, deserves a reply from me, either agreeing with them or disagreeing with them. And a person who has watched the same anime, who enjoys it the same amount as me, who enjoys the same things about it as me, may see that same comment and decide that it's not worth their time to make the reply that likely would have been very similar to the reply that I was making. So if you don't have the critical thinking skills and you don't have the reading comprehension, um, then I don't think it's completely possible. Like, I'm sure it is somewhat possible for you to engage in a nuanced conversation about something, but I do think that you would have to be walked into that nuanced conversation instead of like you deciding to engage initially in a nuanced way. I also think that the fact that we are seeing less and less nuanced conversations, more polarization in conversations, um, less reading comprehension, less critical thinking. I think that these things are the main drivers behind most of the interpersonal conflicts between groups of people that we are seeing today. Like, because without these four things, it becomes really hard to have a fully civil conversation that can end in mutual understanding and agreement, or even an agreement to disagree, like respectfully. Because it's not so much, and we're starting to kind of see like a weak resurgence of people caring more about the sharing of ideas um and like having the discussions that need to be had regardless of who wins. But generally, most of the conversations, the debates, the arguments that are being had are not coming from a place of like ending in mutual understanding. They're more so coming from a place of someone has to win this argument or debate and someone has to lose. And whoever wins is right and whatever they're saying is right. And whoever loses is wrong and whatever they're saying is wrong. And I don't think that's the right way to go about it. I don't think that's the right way to think about it. because that, like, nothing is going to come of that, really. Like, in the grand scheme of things, we've been dealing with this in terms of politics for years now in America. Not much has changed, really, in the last 20 years. You know, um, really not much has changed. Our economy still fluctuates every few years. Job market has been getting worse. Living conditions, living prices, living wages have all been getting worse. Sometimes they'll get better for a little bit and then they'll get worse again. And a lot of the decisions that guide these changes or lack of changes is coming from the politicians. And if you look and you watch and you listen to the debates that they have with each other about these topics, and this is why I have a hard time even watching these things anymore, because it's the same thing over and over. They don't try to come to a mutual understanding to then enact meaningful change. All they're worried about is being right. They want to be right. They want to win. Fuck whatever happens after. It doesn't matter because they won. They won. So they're in the right. They won the election. So clearly their ideas and their values are better and more right and more valuable than the ones of the people that they were running against. But I don't think that's the case. I think both sides are wrong about shit and right about shit. Immigration, actually, I think might be a great example for the whole nuance thing, especially in the way that I'm talking about it. Because I think both Democrats and Republicans are right and wrong in their own ways about this issue. I do think it is somewhat of an issue. I don't think it's as big of an issue compared to everything else we're facing in this country as both sides make it out to be. But clearly it is an issue in some capacity. And clearly something needs to be done about it. But the things that we've been doing about it haven't been working. Do I think it's right that a lot of people who want to immigrate to the United States do so illegally? No. If you want to come to this country and have a better life, that's great. I think you should try. But if you're going to do that, I think it's in your best interest and the best interest of the society that is built here to do so legally whenever you can. This is a completely different story with refugees. Not even going to talk about that. Just regular immigrants. Someone who, let's say, a Brit who is tired of living in Britain, in Great Britain, or Kazakhstan. Actually, let's use like something like Kazakhstan as a better example, because the living conditions there, the economy and stuff, are objectively not as great as they are here. So if you're in Kazakhstan and you want a better life for you and your family, awesome. If the United States is where you want to try and make that a reality, cool. Come here. come here legally. Don't get smuggled in. Come here on a visa. Get a visa. However you need to do it. Get a visa. Come here. Live here for your visa. Live here for the amount of years that you need to live here to apply for citizenship. Be a lawful abiding citizen. Work your job. Pay the taxes, even though the taxes are bullshit. And that's a completely different issue. But it is how it is right now. We are not at a place to enact change on that currently that is meaningful, although I think we are getting there, or have the potential to get there depending on what happens in the next couple of years. But come here with a visa, work your job, pay your taxes, pay your bills, pay your rent on time as much as you can. Do the work, apply for your citizenship, and if you're able to pass the citizenship test, awesome. Awesome. You're a fucking citizen now. Congrats. Welcome to the country. And the whole time that you're doing that, current issues with ICE notwithstanding, the whole time you were doing that, you wouldn't have had to worry about looking over your shoulder. You wouldn't have had to worry about whether or not you're going to get found out and deported for being here illegally. A lot of times for illegal immigrants, it's hard to pay taxes because they obviously don't have any legal documentation to be here. So you don't have to worry about potential tax fraud charges or anything like that. And just, do it. Jump through the hoops for now, even though they're not the best way that it could be set up. And then after you've gone through the hoops, you know better than anyone else who hasn't gone through the hoops what they're like, where they're fair and where they're not, how hard it is to get through that process in the first place. And then you can start trying to initiate change. You can go, because when you're a citizen of the United States, you have a constitutional right to go and bring your concerns to your representatives, to your state representatives, and then they can bring that to the federal government. And then that's how we enact change, But I also don't think it's right to be putting the illegal immigrants, especially the ones that are still abiding by the laws as much as they can, besides like coming here illegally and potentially not paying their taxes. I don't think it's right to put them through extremely traumatizing situations, potentially, not giving them due process, separating the kids from their family members or their parents or anything. Just like all these things that are very traumatic for any human being, no matter where you are, where you came from, who you are. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's the right way to go about it. I don't think building a fucking wall between countries is the right way to go about it either. Making it harder to get into the country is not going to stop people who want a better life from leaving their country where it's hard to live a good life. It's just going to make them get more creative in how they get here. That's it. Like it's gonna inspire them to get more clever about it. And that's nuance. You know, it's not just a black and white, immigration's bad, immigrants are bad, kick them all out. And it's not, immigration is great, all immigrants are good, let them all in. I mean, clearly, that's just not a sustainable way to do it, to go about it. So there's nuance here that's not being acknowledged and not being engaged with. And it's like this for almost every topic now. Now, why I think that is, besides the reasons I've already given, because I do have a theory about it. It is like a conspiracy theory kind of thing. I'm not going to get into that in this video. But yeah, where's the nuance? Can we please bring back the nuance? We need it. We're going to destroy ourselves without it. And I'm not going to say that. Okay. But yeah, where's the nuance? Fucking bring it back, please. What do you think about this? Have you noticed this? Have you noticed yourself not engaging in nuance when you should? Sorry, I had a point come up that I was debating whether or not to include in the video, since I was just kind of doing like a little outro kind of thing. Fuck it, I'm just gonna throw it in there anyways. Give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna spark another cig, and then I'll get into it. Okay. So, there are some issues that have not ever really been, like, there haven't really been legitimate, nuanced conversations that have ever really gone on in any meaningful or wide-reaching ways about that I think should happen. And I mean, the conversations. I'm a mess today. Today's been a rough day, guys, if you can't tell. Anyways, these conversations, I'm not going to act like they're not difficult conversations to have, because they really are. Like, you have to face some very uncomfortable truths to have these conversations. You have to face some really, really uncomfortable, like, thoughts and biases that seem normal to even have. And I will use one example for this. There's a ton of these topics, like quite a few, but I'm just going to use one example. Abuse. Whether that be child abuse, elderly abuse, domestic abuse, any form of abuse. Generally, the conversation around abuse goes like this. Did you see in the news about that guy who beat the shit out of his wife? My God, what a horrible person. He should be in jail for the rest of his life. I can't believe he did that. I can't understand how someone could ever abuse their wife like that. And someone else goes, yeah, I completely agree. That was way out of pocket for him. He should have never done that. I hope justice is served, and I hope that she can recover from that and heal. On the surface, this seems like the proper way to talk about this, because abuse at any level is inexcusable behavior, and there should be repercussions for it. 100%. If you beat the shit out of your wife, you should face consequences for this. What whether that be you yourself get the shit beat out of you, whether you go to jail for however many years, whatever. Punish that. Punish that for sure. But also, and here's the uncomfortable truth, and here's where the nuance comes in. Not everyone who engages in abusive behavior are bad people. And you see this. People see this and then they just discount it because it doesn't follow their narrative or their ideals or their values around the topic. But in cases and trials and stuff of these people, and like, say that guy from that example who beat the shit out of his wife, their entire friend group, maybe one or two, let's say they had, including themselves, it was a 10-person friend group. So the wife, the husband, 8 other people. One or two of them might have noticed some things about the guy that were off, that were indicators that that he engaged in abusive behavior. Let's say 2 of them did. So that's 4 people out of 10 that knew in some capacity that this guy was not the greatest person alive, right? Didn't always do the greatest things or the right things. The other 6 people in that friend group, when that guy gets brought up, their response is usually, not always, but usually it will be, I had no idea that he had the capacity to beat the shit out of his wife like that. I had no indication. I had no clue. He always seemed like such a great guy. He was never anything but nice and great and supportive to me. The fact of the matter is, he wasn't just an abuser. He wasn't. He was a friend to people. He did the things that friends do. He was he contributed to society. He went to work, he did his job, he made his money, paid his taxes, was there for his friends, had fun with them. Maybe he wasn't like a bigot, but he, behind closed doors, he beat the shit out of his wife. People who engage in abusive behaviors as children were either abused themselves or witnessed abusive behavior that was framed in some way that made it seem either necessary or okay to do by the people around them that they look to see what is right and what is wrong. A lot of people who go to jail for domestic abuse, if you look at their childhood and their upbringing, they received a large amount of abuse themselves. This is what they were taught, is how things work and what is okay to do. And this comes. This kind of is related to the video I made about how kids are learning to be human. Kids learn what their parents teach them. They learn from their parents how the world works, what is okay, what is not okay, how to regulate their emotions, like what ways to use to do that. And if you have parents who beat the shit out of you whenever they come home from a bad day at work, after they had 3 or 4 beers, you're going to think at some point of this happening that this is just how life is. This is how it works. When you have a bad day at work, you come home, you get drunk, and then you beat the shit out of the people in your house to deal with that bad day. And it doesn't make what they did right at all. It's not an excuse. It's not excusable in any way. You should never beat the shit out of anyone just because you're having a bad day. Now, there are times where I think you should beat the shit out of someone, but that's not here or there. Just because you're having a bad day does not give you the right to beat the shit out of someone. But to make someone out that their entire character is abusive because that's how they learned how to deal with their shit and didn't know, like, were never made aware until it was too late that that's not the right way to do it. I don't think that's right. I don't think it's right that our prison system is just a place to throw people when they do bad things and then treat them like shit, treat them like animals, and just hope for whatever reason that negative traumatic experience, for most people, it's a very negative, very traumatic experience, scares them away from those behaviors enough that they won't do it again when or if they get out. I think it should be more revolving around rehabilitation of them, teaching them better ways to handle these situations, teaching them that there are better ways to handle this situation instead of just getting drunk and beating the shit out of your wife when Bob at work annoyed the shit out of you all day and made you feel like shit. There's better ways to do it. They don't know that. They don't know it. Most of these people who engage in abusive behaviors more than likely think that going home after a tough day at work, a very frustrating or like degrading day at work, getting drunk and beating the shit out of their wives is how everyone deals with this kind of stress. And it's just not the case. They don't know it. And that's what I'm talking about. These conversations are very difficult conversations to have because you have to be careful about how you talk about them. You have to make sure that you cover as much as you can. You have to use a lot of nuance. And you have to make sure that if you're talking about something like this, that not only are you discussing why they thought it was the right thing to do at all and make sure that you're using nuance in it, you have to make sure that you're not absolving them of responsibility. Because ultimately, as fucked up as it is, and I've been wrestling with accepting this concept myself, the trauma and abuse that we experience at a young age isn't our fault. It's not. We didn't do anything to justify being treated like that. But when we grow up, when we become adults, it is our responsibility to heal from that so that we can make a better impact on the world than the people before us, so that we don't repeat this and pass this trauma down to the next generation or to the people around us, because no one deserves it. No one, not a single person deserves to be traumatized just because you were. And that's your responsibility to make sure it doesn't happen. So, yeah. Let me know what you think about this. Um, and I also want to say before I go, not really related to the topic of this video, but in my last memory cataloging video, the years 5 to 9, at the very beginning, I talked about how exciting it was that I had got my first subscriber and I was starting to get a little bit of traction on the channel without promoting it anywhere. And at the time, I hadn't been able to figure out, because YouTube Studio is not the most efficient, doesn't really function the most efficiently. Um, but I didn't know for a fact whether or not the person who left a comment on a video was the person who had subscribed. But then I found out after I uploaded that video that they had, so I just wanted to give a shout out to Marianne. She was my first commenter and my first subscriber on this channel. Just happened to find my video, the video titled "Humans Are Weird and Need Discomfort," and watched the whole fucking thing. Amazing. I honestly did not expect anyone to watch a whole video of mine at all, and I'm pretty sure that she is still watching all or the majority of my new uploads, which is awesome. Thank you, Marianne. Shout out to you for being my first subscriber, my first comment. Um, Thank you for being a part of the beginning of this journey with the channel. And I hope you and anyone else watching this video has an easier night or day or week, whatever it is. I will see y'all in the next video.